Ukraine ever becomes a NATO member state, then Russia will have NATO on its very border. NATO's missiles, nuclear missiles, can hit Moscow in a matter of minutes. This is not a security option Russia is prepared to accept. And so Russia has put its foot down. This is our red line. We will not allow a next-door neighbor state to pose such a tremendously dangerous threat to our security. So we're going to take steps to ensure the protection of our own security. And Russia has every right to ensure its security.
NATO's Secretary General Jens Stoltenberg announced an increase in the NATO alliance's Rapid Reaction Force to more than 300,000 people from the current 40,000 people. The NATO mafia have adopted a new security concept in which Russia will be recognized as a global threat, amongst other threats as well, like China. The growth of NATO troops in the region is a serious reason for attention, especially if we're talking about Russia's current numbers in the region. At present, Russian armed forces have around 120,000 to about 150,000 people, and for NATO to suddenly increase their number of troops will not bring any good to Russia.
I think we have to double our efforts. Putin cannot win this war. This is very important to all of us, to the security of NATO as well. And the second thing we need to discuss is how to increase our defense spending and how to do it very wisely.
If NATO does manage to bring in so many troops, 300,000 they say, then NATO will gain an upper hand, and some people even say such a scenario is a classic ratio for an attack on Russia. Obviously this is nothing positive for Russia, even if we take into account the fact that Russia hasn't used everything it could in the special military operations over in Ukraine. However, expanding the rapid troops to 300,000 will not be the most easiest thing, and at this stage it looks like NATO is bluffing. 300,000 people in the NATO Rapid Force should not be understood as the creation of a new army of 300,000 people, but it's probably more of the transfer of 300,000 troops from the entire Euro-Atlantic to the Rapid Reaction Force category. How much will it cost for the budgets of NATO countries and separately for Europe to have a permanent stay of a contingent 7.5 times higher than the usual, taking into account weapons, maintenance, repairs, accommodation, food, medical insurance and other things? That's an open question. For goodness sake, people are already hurt with high inflation and fuel prices, yet these lot want to increase troops, and guess who's going to pay for it? Not America, but the taxpayers of NATO countries, which means tax hikes if we already aren't having those at the moment, high inflation and high cost of living. All this isn't looking too good for the West. Expect living standards to drop further by 2024 if NATO have their way. And by the way, when I say taxpayers of NATO countries, I mean you'll have to look at the uneven number and quality of the armed forces of NATO member countries. The main burden to supply these troops and money will come from the United States, countries like Poland, some Eastern European countries, but mostly from Germany, the cash point of the European Union, and Britain of course. Same Britain which left the EU saying Brits are paying too much to be in the EU is now ready to spend loads of money to protect a faraway land that's nowhere near the shores of Britain. Western European countries don't have any serious reasons to be afraid of Russia nor Vladimir Putin and should not get led astray by NATO. Anyway, enough from me. We'll hear from our friend Ramzan Kadyrov on the matter. Over and out.
И поэтому я призываю всех не обращать внимания на то, что якобы НАТО хочет увеличить до 2034 года, там, 23-24 годах там численность до 300 тысяч, в Европе не осталось только мужчин, я думаю, что потому что они не разрешают называть еще мужчину мужчина, а женщина женщины. Оно можно назвать. Поэтому с ними нам хотят, стыдно воевать, но все равно, если они нарушают безопасность, если они лезут в наши края, наши границы, то мы должны их остановить. Поэтому у нас в России достаточно сил, средств.